Hi guys, and welcome to the third video in a short series looking at challenges for development in hot deserts. So in the previous video we looked at characteristics and adaptations in the desert. The last video we looked at opportunities for development, and now we're looking at challenges for development. As we know, hot deserts are very, very hostile. They have very hostile conditions, and so this presents difficulties when looking at some of those key challenges from a previous video. So last time in the last video, we looked at opportunities with a focus on the Thar Desert. We're going to keep our focus on that very same desert because it's a really, really useful case study to use. So the Thar Desert is located in the northwest region of India, and it sits between India and Pakistan, with the main sort of largest area within that being Rajasthan. And there's three sort of key challenges that we are going to ultimately focus on here. So one of the key challenges for development in the Thar Desert is, as we would probably expect, extreme temperatures. Another key challenge is thinking about water supply. So access to, provision of, and also storing of water. And then, sort of the third challenge, again, as you probably would expect, is what we'd call inaccessibility. So, inability to get to and from certain places due to the terrain, due to the topography, and due to the general climate of the deserts as well. So, first and foremost, first kind of key challenge then is extreme temperatures. So, you can see obviously a climate graph on the right. A couple of key things are causing the extreme temperatures, and you'll also see how some of these challenges feed into one another. So, obviously, we looked at water supply, and you can quite clearly see that extreme temperatures is caused by the fact that generally all year round, or majority of the year, should I say, temperatures are very, very high and precipitation levels are incredibly low. Yeah, remembering that obviously 250 millimetres below 250 millimetres is how we'd categorise a desert in terms of precipitation levels. So you can see very clearly there that is the case, very low levels of precipitation throughout the year. So Thar Desert experiences high temperatures, creating a variety of different challenges. One of those being that the heat presents health challenges for people working outside. So in the last video, we talked about some of the opportunities. All of those opportunities were around sort of farming, mining for key materials, or tourism. So in a lot of those, you've got people that are obviously working outside. So things like dehydration, things like heat stroke, could prevent people from potentially working. If those people are unable to work, they may not have free healthcare, so they then kind of get stuck in a little bit of what we'd call a cycle of poverty. So, for example, I work in tourism, I'm a tour guide, and I'm dehydrated and I get heat stroke. I can't necessarily go to the local doctors or the local hospitals and be treated for free. I would need to pay for that. If I'm not working, I don't have a source of income because I'm working in the informal economy. I don't have the money to be able to do that. And I'm stuck in kind of a little bit of a vicious cycle, as it were. Equally, again, tourism is seasonal and limited to cooler months of the year. So I'm not earning, if I work within tourism, within that industry, I am not earning a consistent and continuous wage for 12 months of the year. It's very much focused within the winter months that tourists visit the Thar Desert. Low rainfall and high temperatures lead to obviously high evaporation rates, and that will feed into again kind of that key issue of water supply, but ultimately provision of water for plants, animals, people is a very, very prominent challenge in the desert. And that again feeds into the extreme heat, leads to dehydration for plants, animals, which impacts farming, biodiversity, and also the jobs that people are doing as well, as we've sort of previously discussed. So you can see how a lot of these are sort of interlinked, or there is kind of that interdependence element here. So linking on in with that then, water supply, as you'd expect, very dry, very arid, very low rates, low levels of precipitation. So Thar Desert, the population is growing as well as the farming industry. So two things. We know that the Thar Desert is the world's most densely populated desert. We know, therefore, that there are going to be high levels of natural increase. There's also going to be an influx of people moving into the desert because people are already living there. So they're hearing about how good or how progressive life is within that desert region and then moving into that area. So again, there's high rates of migration, but we've also got farming, commercial farming, which is taking place, irrigation, which is happening. So a lot of that water is being used for irrigation and perhaps isn't accessible to people for a supply of water. So water demand is high, making it a scarce resource, as you would expect. Lots of people living there, high rates of migration, high rates of natural increase, most densely populated desert in the world. People need water. People need water for drinking. People need water for industry. People need water for farming. People need water for their cattle. Okay. There's a really high demand for various different reasons for water as a resource. The desert has low annual rainfall, below 250 millimetres. Remember, that's a key piece of information. High temperatures and strong winds. Evaporation rates are very, very high. Any rain that falls does not stay on the ground for a very long period of time. So we've got the challenge of not only storing and retaining water, but also obtaining it in the first place when the rains do happen. Okay, within the Thar Desert, then there are very few rivers and very few streams. Okay, these only flow after heavy rainfall. So otherwise, they are very, very dry. You've got competition from people, competition from plants, competition from cattle. Okay, there's a lot of competition for a very, very limited resource, and that obviously creates huge, huge challenges for people. Deserts often do sit on top of underground aquifers, so stores of water. However, a lot of that water is poor quality, so can be kind of very, very salty, very dirty, very unfiltered, not particularly clean, but also it can be very, very difficult to obtain as well. So you've got kind of two challenges there, or the challenge there I would say ultimately is twofold. Poor quality water, also very difficult and very expensive to access that water as well. So not perhaps as clear cut as we might want it to be or need it to be in this instance. So the stores of water we have got aren't particularly great. The option that we have for streams, rivers, rainfall, again, very limited around a particular time of the year. And then kind of our third and final option is inaccessibility within the Thar Desert. So getting in and around the desert, as you would expect, is very, very challenging. Many parts of the Thar have limited to no access at all. So areas that you can get to are challenging, and there are some areas that you just physically can't get to, full stop. As you would expect, there are very limited road networks, very limited in terms of how well they're constructed, but also things like public transport, things like the quality of road networks, the quality of that infrastructure, the investment is not there, it is not present. High temperatures, obviously, again, melt tarmac. If it's a continual process that's happening, the repairs are not going to be done because the money that's put in is ultimately kind of a little bit worthless. So roads, obviously, then are very, very poor maintained and of poor quality. Strong winds blow sand onto roads. So again, that can very, very fine sand as well in things like sandstorms, etc. So manoeuvring and navigating those roads is challenging. And obviously, again, if you've got a large influx of transport or movement, it's going to create things like potholes. You're going to sort of get that sand within the road, within the tarmac, again, creating some other challenges. Quite a lot of the area cannot be accessed by a vehicle. So again, that kind of creates key challenges. Most preferred sort of method of transport in the Thar Desert traditionally is via camel, obviously, because they can go off-road. They're very well suited for walking in the sand, as we found out from our adaptations video. And public transport, as you can see there, that's an example of a bus within the Thar Desert. Public transport is heavily oversubscribed, so lots of people are using it, and again, naturally very poorly funded. Equally, those buses are not going to be driving up some of the large dunes. So again, you can see how access is very, very difficult and very, very challenging in this part of the desert. So thinking about some of those key challenges then, here's a couple of questions for you to think about. Pause the video and sort of consider, write down some ideas or have a think over. Think about each of the challenges. How could you summarise them into kind of one sentence to help you remember each? So how could you summarise extreme temperatures in the Thar and why those are a challenge? How could you summarise water supply into a sentence or two and how that's a challenge? How could you summarise inaccessibility? What you will notice is kind of all three of those challenges are somewhat interlinked. You know, the extreme temperatures create a particular landscape. That particular landscape is challenging in terms of accessibility or inaccessibility, but also in terms of the provision of water as well. Rivers and streams are intermittent in the Thar Desert. What does this mean? So again, thinking about those times of the year when they are flowing, not flowing because of rainfall, how that kind of helps, and also the challenges that are created from that. Yes, we've got an opportunity of farming and commercial farming and irrigation, but actually that opportunity is confined to certain months and times of the year because of the challenge of temperature, evaporation, and so on and so forth. So again, you can see that interconnectivity and that kind of correlation, that relationship there. And then what I've done is sort of thought, how would this appear to you in an exam scenario? So explain how extreme temperatures and water supply present challenges for development in hot deserts. So again, you're going to kind of state the problem, so extreme temperatures, and then provide reasons. Why do extreme temperatures create challenges? Well, we've got an increased rate of evaporation. We've got tourism industry that is only sustainable, if you like, for a couple of months of the year because tourists only want to visit in those cooler winter months. We've got a scenario where people are working outside and they are earning money, but that is being, I guess you could say, impacted by extremes of temperature, lack of available water. So dehydration, heat stroke, sunstroke are creating challenges for people. Again, very similar with water supply. You know, only certain times of the year, rivers and streams are intermittent, high rates of evaporation. So again, there's lots of things that you can be writing about for that 6 marks. You just need to make sure that when you are stating a point, you are developing that. So you are linking it back. Why is this a challenge? Why is this important? Okay, why does this have a profound impact, negative impact on people in the Thar, and also as using the Thar as a resource as well.